Okay, yeah. Well, here we are back in Miss Pance's class, and I'm just delighted that to be having a chat with two of the students. May I ask your name?
I'm Zander.
Zander and
I'm Shaheen.
Shaheen. So one of the things I'm investigating, I've been doing for years, is this: if you were given the opportunity by a school district to get some advice on how we reimagine learning into the future, right? What would be some of the key things that you would suggest that are important about learning environments?
So one of the key things I think I would suggest about learning environments is a student having the ability to express themselves in the way that they view things and the way they learn things. And that's one thing I feel like is very noticeable in this biology class, is that when Ms. Bansi gives us opportunities to express our learning or like basically improve our learning or test it on something. We don't get tested. She gives us opportunities to display our learning in our own way.
So you don't get tested?
No, not tests.
Okay.
Everything's called an opportunity.
An opportunity to demonstrate our learning.
To demonstrate your learning. Brilliant. How about yourself?
For me, I believe that it's really about like molding to what the students really need. So
Excuse me, say it again?
molding to what the students need. So like some students have specific needs, right? Like so different schedules might not work for some students. But some students might like to wake up later, some students might like to wake up early. So I think different hours for students to be able to come in and learn when they want and learn how they want would just be really like interesting for me to see.
Whoa, what brilliant two opening statements. Now, Shaheen, you're talking about disrupting. That's disruptive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big change.
That's people having to really think outside the box.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I do, but I feel like it would be difficult to work around a teacher's schedule when there's a big class that would need to, like I guess, work with all these different people's time schedules and all these different preferences.
Yeah.
But I feel like it would be very beneficial if we could make it work.
Yeah. And in my experience, if you want to make it work, you find a way.
Yeah.
Okay, so take me into this classroom, because clearly what is the opportunities that you have here really give this opportunity to learn a different way. Can you give me an example of how it's worked for you?
So an example of how this works for me, basically in every other class, right now I have two other classes that I'm stressing about an exam for, and I'm worried about writing a test. In this class, I already finished my final evaluation, and basically Ms. Bense gave us all our different way of, or she didn't give us a different way, she gave us all our own way to demonstrate everything we've learned from our own point of view, like everything from the course compiled into one assignment to demonstrate to her what we've learned from our point of view and what we've taken out of the course that actually, I guess, not benefits us, but would more likely lead us in the path that we're going to choose in the future.
Very good, thank you.
So what I wanted to talk about was the thinking task. So we do like different thinking tasks around the classroom where she'd give us an example of something and we'd have to go up on the whiteboards and explain that phenomenon or explain that situation, how it matters to us. So what that did is it really helped me understand a concept. Instead of memorizing a different term or a different way to look at it, I get to find my own way of discovering how to look at that term, how to look at that kind of property, how to look at that concept. And how that helped me is when I was doing my final evaluation is I was able to just link everything that I knew in the course back to my thinking tasks, and I was able to use those as different like explanations, examples for what I was learning from what I knew.
Does this have implications? Can this be replicated in all classrooms, do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's many classes like math classes. People find it difficult to not just be sitting and listening to this teacher explain formulas and explain problems on the board. But if a teacher was able to really put it into perspective of maybe real life situations, or like I guess there's word problems, but like real life situations where like you can put somebody in a situation where they would be able to correlate this with something that's actually happening instead of just seeing these numbers. It gets confusing for some people, and especially people like me who are more visual learners. It helps a lot, and especially being able to work with other people, because like we did when we did the board talks, like he was talking about the I forget what you used.
The thinking classroom?
Yeah, the thinking classroom, the thinking tasks. It helps a lot to be able to discuss with other people and look at other people's boards and understand what they're getting at and like what their perspective is, and it helps a lot being able to look at other point of views.
Wow. Shaheen, do you have a reflection on that in terms of implications?
Yeah, I fully agree. Like I think he got it like spot on. Because when I was writing a test or something, instead of having to memorize an equation, I just think back, what did we do last week in bio? What were we performing? What was the activity that we were doing? And then that, like straight away, I can think, okay, for this question, this is something that I thought about. This is something that someone else thought about. That was a good point that they made. That was a good way of them explaining it. Like if you're ever stuck, you can just walk around the classroom and there's all these ideas that are just up for display. It's like an art gallery. You can just go and you can just like see different people's perspective on things, and it's really interesting because you can like put them all together for yourself in your own mind.
Do you see any social benefits to this?
Absolutely. There's so many people in this biology class that I've been going to school with for years and haven't really conversated with. And then the second I step into this class and we're in a classroom and I need to discuss with them what their point of view is on this specific thinking task we're doing, I can get into a 30-minute conversation with this person about biology, and then I've known them for so long and haven't really had any relationship with it. It helps a lot. It makes a big difference.
So what I believe is, since Miss Bansay has this kind of triangle, so there's one person with the marker who's writing, and there's two people who are giving them the ideas to write. So that way the ideas are kind of channeled through the person with the marker, so everyone gets to hear the ideas. It's not just one person writing, that like not everyone has to actually listen to that person. If you're saying it out loud, everybody in the group gets to hear it, and that person gets to write it down. Even if they want to, they can display it in their own words, right? So everything makes sense to everyone in that group. It's not just like one person gets to write down ideas and then eventually you would switch and then you would switch again, so that it goes like full circle through the triangle, just to make sure that everyone has a conceptualized understanding of the idea.
And this is part of the Thinking Classroom book that I read, so just want to add that.
When should we start this in schools? At what stage of schooling should we start this approach?
I think if this this idea was introduced very early in schooling, I think it could be carried on, and like once students adapt to be able to, like if they get used to this, basically we're used to the testing format, we're used to the sit down and write what teachers tell you format. If we were given this format from a young age, I feel like it would be, not only would we be better at it, and because we came into this not used to it. At the start of the year it was a little slower, we were like unsure of how to deal with it, but after like a month it was just flowing, and I could only imagine how that would be if we had been put in this system from the start, or
Yeah, I agree with Zander. I think from the very start this should have been the conventional classroom. I think it should be a display of people's ideas, especially because younger people have a huge tendency to be more creative.
Oh my gosh.
So you can see their creativity flow through the board instead of channeling it through like a specific like problem or something like that. You can see their thought process, you can see their ideas, and they can build on their own thoughts rather than just learning something else.
I just want to pick up on that. You say that younger people tend more towards the creative side. What happens? Is it a coincidence or is it just it's just a fact of life that as we grow older?
I don't believe so. I think it's because when you're a kid, you believe that anything can happen because you haven't seen consequences, you haven't seen things not be able to happen. You don't have that like threshold that kind of like you grow to learn, like. Because when you learn more about things, you learn that there's other things that can't be done, or you believe they can't be done until they're done. But as a kid, anything can be done. You never know what can or can't be done because you haven't learned that yet. So you kind of have this like mentality or like ideology that it's like anything can be done if you think about it.
Especially being put in this system, or in this school system that we have in this young age. When you look at a kindergarten classroom, you see all these creative minds and all these kids running around doing anything, expressing themselves in all these different ways. And then as we evolve into this testing format, into this learn what you learn, it limits everybody's capabilities, I believe, or it basically puts an idea into people's minds that there's so much right and there's so much wrong. There's right and wrong in this classroom, especially in the thinking classroom ideas. There's so many different ways you can answer a question, and so many different ways you can explain or display how you understand something. So I feel like it would make such a difference in not only, I guess, just the minds of people as they graduate and progress through school.
Zander, Shaheen, you're inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much,
Thank
Doctor.
you.